Hello, folks, and welcome. Leslie Frost and I are going to talk a little bit about our vacation we took from her adventure from Denmark, Copenhagen, to Acapulco, Mexico, and I went from Eau Claire, Wisconsin to Acapulco, Mexico. And I flew out of Eau Claire on a Monday morning, and it was 20 below Fahrenheit, and which is 29 below centigrade or Celsius, and got to Acapulco and it was 85 degrees Fahrenheit that day, which is, oh shit.
Is it like 20 something Celsius?
It was 30 degrees Celsius then when we got to Acapulco, so it was a pretty drastic temperature change. I was afraid that the airplane wasn't going to be able to leave Eau Claire because it was so cold. It was really nasty. But I flew to Chicago and was able to just get on another plane there and fly straight to Mexico City, where I had very little problems with the TSA and immigration and stuff flying down there. It was just in Eau Claire, they got me for a random inspection of my luggage and swabbed my hands for, I would assume, explosives and whatnot, and the inside of my luggage and all that stuff. But in Chicago, they didn't really do anything. They just went through to my other airplane and got on and went to Mexico City, where went through immigration down there and just basically stood in line and went through and had to fill out a form, and they let me through, and I went to the baggage area where I waited for about 20 minutes and met up with Leslie, and then let's see. So what was your trip like, Leslie, on the way there?
Well, I mean, I had a bit of I don't know, trouble, like what, because I flew through from Copenhagen to Berlin first, and in Berlin I went through the security check, and I had like these long boots, and I was like taking off the boots, and I had to put everything in the little box thing and everything, and so I go through security, and the guy rifles through my bag and he finds my Zippo lighter, and so he says either he's going to take my Zippo lighter or I have to take out the cotton inside the Zippo lighter. So I say, okay, great, I'll take off the cotton and then I can give it to you. He's like, no, you have to go to the front desk. And I say, okay, great, can I just leave my stuff here, because like I had a lot of bags. No, I had to take all of the stuff all the way up to the front desk, to have her see me take the cotton out of the Zippo lighter, fill out a piece of paper or something that I did it, and then all the way back again through the security check, just because they were afraid of me having a Zippo lighter that worked, apparently. That was really dangerous. And so after that, I flew to Chicago, and when you come into the U.S., like I'd never been to the U.S. before, and I had the ESTA filled out beforehand, and that was like they access it online or something. And so I thought that was fine, like you could just go through, but no, you are put in, like you're walked to this area where people are, it's like these little screens, and then you have to put your hand on this like glass plate, and they take your fingerprints, and then they take a picture of you as well when you enter the country. And like the TSA people were like really rude. They were like, you know, yelling at people like, oh, come on, like you have to hurry. Like it was horrible. It was horrible service. But then that was fine, and then only on the way back, because like I kept my head down, I didn't say anything. On the way back, I was really tired, I was really groggy, and so I had to do the fingerprinting again to fly from Chicago to like when I landed in Chicago from Mexico, and I had like one day in Chicago, and I was visiting a friend there, so I didn't have a lot of time. And then I had trouble with the fingerprinting, and so some guy comes over, is like, oh, you have to do like this, and I said, oh yeah, you know, it's not that easy for me because I'm not a criminal, so I haven't really done this before. And he just looks at me, he's like, ma'am, if you're not gonna do this, we're gonna have an agent, you know, force you to do it. And I was like, okay, crazy. And then after that, I was put in another line of people, and a guy went through all of my luggage basically, and I was kind of, already pretty annoyed by that time, and I kind of say to him, he was asking me all these really personal questions, and I say like, oh, I haven't really shared that much intimate details with a person I just met, and he just looks at me, he's like, oh God, you're one of them. And I was like, one of who? And he says apparently a lot of people are asking, like, are questioning his job more and more, which made me really happy actually. And so I sort of like kind of talking to him, and because I was, just like annoying him a little bit, and then he's like, you know what? I can keep you here for 24 hours without any reason. Like if he doesn't like my attitude, he can just keep me there. I was like, would you really keep me there for 24 hours and you know that there's nothing wrong just because you don't like my attitude? And he's like, yeah, I could use the overtime. And I was like, okay. So I didn't say anything anymore, and then he let me pass. It was just crazy. It was insane.
It's kind of ridiculous, the authority trip that those guys are on, and they're just assholes about it too. They try to rush you through there, and if it's your first time going through, you really don't know what the hell is going on. And they got all these machines and scanners and everything, and they're pushing you through these long lines, and you got to stand in line and wait and wait and wait, and then you come up to these machines, and they got all these instructions written out in several different languages. You got to figure out how to get to your language, and then it's like, well, what the hell is this, and why do I have to do it? And they're like, just do it, hurry up, and
it makes you feel like I have not done anything. I'm just, I'm going on a holiday, or I'm visiting a friend. I literally am not bothering anyone. And they're being, like, from the beginning, like in the U.S., even more than in Germany, where they were kind of like strict and harsh. But in the U.S., they were so rude, like from the beginning. No service of any kind, no sort of politeness or anything. It was just like rudeness from the first second. And they have no reason to be nice, I guess. Like, they have no reason to talk nicely to people, because it's not customers that they're going to lose, because people just have to do what they're told.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not a customer service. It's a customer, I don't know what you would call it. It's just
customer disservice.
Basically, yeah. But anyway, once I got to Mexico City, the immigration thing was pretty easy. They're just filling out the form, and the Mexican immigration lady was this nice young lady, and she couldn't speak any English, and she asked me if I could speak Spanish, and I just said un poco, and she took that to mean a lot more than what I could speak. When I said un poco, that was about all I could say. And so she started just talking, and I was like, no, un poco. And she just looked at it and smiled at me and let me go through. But
they were so polite. I mean, I had no trouble with the Spanish immigration at all. Everyone was just like, you went from this place, like, first of all, it was like super cold. Like, when I went through Chicago as well, it was so cold. And then you come to this really warm country, and people are warm as well. And they were like welcoming. You could feel that.
Yeah, and they were polite and helpful. They weren't just like ordering you around and being dicks about it. They seemed to be, if you were confused about what to do or whatever, and even if you were having a hard time communicating with them, they were accommodating and not getting upset with you for not understanding. They were trying to be helpful and being pleasant about it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I had like it was like this sense of that they have laws there, and even like it was generally the feeling that they do have laws, of course, in Mexico, and it's not it's not like everything's legal there or anything, but you have a sense of people not going out of their way to find something wrong with you or catch you for something. It just felt like yeah, we have laws, and then if someone is making trouble, we're going to do something about it. But if you just mind your own business and you don't make any trouble for anyone, and you just yourself, they won't care enough to go and start rifling through your shit and stuff like that. And it really felt like that in the U.S. And in Europe, that they almost just go out of their way to find a problem.
Yeah,
and they didn't do that in Mexico.
that was the feeling I got too. And when we were in Acapulco, it seemed, when we were just out and about and doing things, it took me a couple days. I was always looking around to see if there were any no smoking signs and things like that, if I could have a cigarette or things like that. And then after a while, I was like, nobody cares if you smoke here. They don't care as long as you don't ask. And it's like, if you ask, they're probably going to say, no, you can't smoke here, but you can smoke over there. But if you don't ask, they just aren't going to say anything. So, and I remember mentioning that to you while we were there and saying, yeah, it's just, we've gotten this slave mentality where ingrained into us that we've gotten so we're looking for permission for almost every action we do now, where we're looking for signs to see if our behavior is going to be okay in that area and everything. And down there, you get the feeling after a few days, you kind of let go of that, and you're like, oh yeah, I don't have to look for permission anymore. That's what freedom is you don't have to get permission for your every action.
Yeah, and exactly, and the whole point of even just the idea that people are punished for breaking a law, in Europe or in the U.S. Like, we have over 16,000 laws and over 67,000 paragraphs. No human being, like not even lawyers, know the exact laws. Yet, if you do break one of them, you can either get fined or put in jail. And it's like, who's supposed to know exactly? And this is the thing, and that's why we go to a default of thinking, I'm not allowed to do this until I'm specifically told I can.
Yeah,
so your default position is, I can't do this, or I'm not allowed, and then you have to ask to check.
Yeah, and it's really gotten to be ridiculous because, and there are so many people on the lookout now for somebody doing something they don't like, and even if it's not illegal here, if it's even something that somebody doesn't like, they'll just assume it's illegal and report you, or they'll arrest you. Like the cops here will arrest you for things that aren't illegal, and then they'll figure out something that is illegal after they arrest you and charge you with it. So it's just so much different there, because while we were there, I mean, they have those OXXO convenience stores everywhere, and there was one right next to our hotel where we were getting the canned margaritas, which were really good.
Oh, I love the canned margaritas, the best thing ever.
Where we went in the store and got canned margaritas, and we were walking down the street, the main drag of Acapulco, drinking the canned margaritas and smoking cigarettes, and nobody cared.
No. No, it's perfect. Nobody cares, because everyone really just seems like they are like, the people there, obviously you don't, I don't know, like the sort of like social security system or the welfare there, but you see people just trying to make their way, and they're too busy with their own life, and they're too busy with living their own life, with having stuff to do, because like obviously I'm assuming that they don't have they don't get money from the government if they're unemployed, and they're just too busy trying to be with their friends and work and have fun, and going out of their way to say to someone that they're not allowed to smoke or they're not allowed to have a drink is not going to benefit them in any way. Like, why would you want to sort of make people feel unwelcome? Because they want people to feel welcome there, and people do feel welcome there. And I think that was the general thing, that even in Denmark, I really don't feel welcome many places, because it's like people almost like, yeah, they do go out of their way to sort of set rules and make limitations on what people can do all the time. There's signs everywhere, don't walk on the grass, don't do this, don't smoke, don't do anything. And there, it's just generally like, just do whatever. Don't make trouble, but just do whatever you want.
Yeah, and as far as the entrepreneurs and stuff go there, I mean, there's people hustling everywhere trying to make money, whereas in the United States anyway, if they tried doing that, they'd be arrested or shot on sight. Where there was a guy, when we were in the taxi, there was a guy out in the street at the stoplight. He was blowing fire from a torch with his mouth and stuff, and then he was trying to get tips while people were parked at the stoplight. So there's like these entertainers and stuff out there, and then there's people out doing washing windshields and selling water at the stoplights, or sodas and fruit and everything. And so, and on the beach there's all these people trying to sell trinkets, and most of the stuff there that they're trying to sell, they don't really seem to have a good idea of how to see a business through from start to finish. They just kind of get the middle. So they try to sell this stuff on the beach that's complete shit, and nobody's going to want it. Whereas, if they thought ahead a little bit more, they might be able to do a better business. But
one has to remember, whenever you if any of our audience ever go to Mexico or to Acapulco, if someone is trying to sell you like seashells or something, you could ask them about maybe if they have other things, wink wink nudge nudge, and they might be able to accommodate you. Just saying.
Yeah, illegal substances and things down there aren't really frowned upon. They're still illegal, but they don't really care about that stuff as much. I mean,
I heard about a guy who was where a police officer helped him figure out where to buy weed. He was like, I thought he went crazy. I was like, what are you doing? And the police officer was like, yeah, over that guy with the, by the palm tree, you should be able to buy something, and he did. So they're pretty nice, I guess. I mean, of course, it's like we shouldn't paint it like too rosy, because there are of course problems there, and it's not because like police is always nice, and one has to be sort of vigilant, and you have these police officers with machine guns and all that kind of stuff, but it's not, I mean, you would never be able to go to a Danish police officer and get him to point you in the right direction of where to buy weed, for sure. And obviously, because we didn't go out of our way to look up trouble. So I think in some areas, obviously, there's problems with drug gangs and things like that. So it is something to be aware of. It's not just like free for all. But definitely much less than it is, at least in Europe, for sure.
Yeah. While we were there in Acapulco, there was the teachers union, which is a communist party thing, basically was having riots, basically protesting, because there was this tennis tournament in town and there were a lot of press. So they decided that was a good time to protest so they could get some attention, and so they were basically burning buses and doing some things. So there were a lot of federales in there from Mexico City driving around in pickup trucks with machine guns and things like that, but they weren't interested in us. They were just, paying attention to these protesters and things, and actually they gave rides to some of the people that were at our conference, because the protesters had blocked off the roads and things. So
yeah, the federales gave a ride to some of the anarchists, didn't they?
Yeah, it was just bizarre and mind-blowing that the federales are giving rides to anarchists.
Yeah, because we saw the pictures, and because we saw the pictures before they came, we were like, oh my God, they got arrested, and they were like, no, no, man, they gave us a ride.
Yeah, they were acting like a taxi service to get around the communists.
It was really. Oh, and actually during the demonstrations, the teachers' demonstrations, I asked some of the locals like what they thought about it, and then they were just like shaking their heads. They were like, "Oh my God, these people! What's wrong with them?" You know, that they seemed to really be annoyed with them more than anything else, because they were like, yeah, they basically wanted more money from the government or something, or someone lost their jobs or something, and they were just like annoyed with them. It wasn't even that the locals were supporting their cause; they were just like causing a lot of trouble, and people just didn't like it.
Yeah, that was the impression I got too when I had asked a couple people too, and I just said when they were, you and I had went to eat at Applebee's at the mall there, and we were sitting out on the patio, and the communists were marching up the street and had the street blocked off and had a loudspeaker and a pickup and stuff, and there were some guys with masks or hoods on and things, and they were marching up the street, and people came outside to see what was going on, and I just said, communists? And the people said, yeah.
Yeah. I know it does seem that what my biggest impression was that Mexico, well, at least Acapulco, and I think generally Mexico, that it's a country where there is so much room for new businesses to start up, and I would really recommend for anyone that is thinking about moving from Europe or the U.S. If you want, if you have any ideas for businesses, it's a really good thing to maybe think about doing it in Mexico, especially like if it's an online business, you can for sure do it in Mexico because it is so cheap compared to the living cost in the US and Europe. I mean, I talked to a guy who had like he moved there just like without anything, and he made like furniture or something, and he basically lived in like this 1-bedroom apartment, like nice, simple, not anything flashy, but just a nice, simple apartment. And he paid $150 a month.
Yeah.
So you can have, if you save up a little money just to get going, you can really live cheaply, and food is really, really cheap. You can basically live off, I think it's just like a fifth or a fourth of the cost of the US and Europe for sure.
Yeah, you can live pretty decently there, I think, for if you even the half the cost you're living outside or in the US, for half of what I spend on the cost of living, I could live pretty decently down there, I think.
Yeah, and even we were talking about, for instance, like you could get a private chauffeur, and even here I'm talking about, like I talked with to a taxi driver, and because I was like driving around for like a while, and I remember like I asked him how much would it cost to have you like drive me around all day, and he was like, oh, but how much would you pay me? And I'm like, oh, he's gonna like want like a lot of money, and I just said something that I considered to be not that much money for like a whole day's work with his own taxi, and I said just like 300 pesos, and that's just about, I don't know, 23, 24 bucks or something. And he just looked at me. He's like, "Oh my God! If you gave me that much money, like I would literally do anything." I was like, "Okay." So I could get like a private chauffeur for like 25 bucks a day, or even like less if you hired him for a longer period of time. It is an insane difference. And going there and giving, if you gave that money to someone and had them work for you, they would feel lucky to have that job. He would feel that he suddenly struck gold that someone was giving him that much money. And if you have if you have an online business anyway, why not just move to a place where the sun is shining and people are nice, and you literally can get so much higher living standard for so much less money. And it's like, even I think like, even because I saw some videos about people living in Tijuana, and everyone thinks that Tijuana is like the worst place in the world, and they just said, it was Americans especially, and they said. And it was also like people who are retired, so they were just getting their retirement check there, and they said they were living like kings.
Yeah, like we bought a lot of stuff at that convenience store, OXXO, and the prices there compared to, I mean, I don't know what it is. If the convenience stores there, I'm assuming, are more expensive than a regular store because it's a convenience store. But even the prices there seemed dirt cheap to us. I bought cigarettes there. Camels were 49 or 48 pesos a pack, which was about $3 or so, about less than half the price of what they are in the U.S. Those canned margaritas, I think, were 13 and a half pesos or 16 pesos, something like that.
Yeah, 16.
Which is just a little over $1. And I mean, it was just ridiculous. We bought all the canned margaritas that they had
I
over
know.
a 3-day period.
There was that day when I went to the store to buy more, and they literally didn't have any more left. They were like, "Yeah, Jamie bought them all now." It's like within 2 days.
They were so good. I don't know what flavor they were, because all the canned margaritas we have here are like strawberry or some lime or some crazy flavor. The ones they had there were just wonderful.
Maybe it's because we were in a good mood as it was, and then everything tasted a lot better.
Yeah, it was great. We'd go there and buy a dozen of those canned margaritas and some other stuff, a couple bottles of water and everything, and it was so cheap. And everybody at the hotel would just go to that convenience store and buy beer or whatever, and we would have parties by the pool. And the people that were at the conference, it was so great being with such like-minded people. We would just sit around and everybody just bring beer or whatever, and it was just kind of throw it in the middle and help yourself to whatever people brought. And
yeah, we had that was the funny thing. Like we're supposedly like the ANCAPs, like we're capitalists and all that kind of stuff. But it was basically just everyone sharing with each other. Like no one was ever asking anyone for money, and it was more than just being with people who were like-minded. It was just really, really great people. They were people that were generous. They would help you if you needed help, and I've been offered.
No egos.
Yeah, it was just it was just offering you help to stay there if you needed to have somewhere to stay if you wanted to move there, and it was really this giving, feeling of like being around people who were giving, and they were interested in helping others who also wanted to get out and also wanted to start a new life, because they knew how hard it was for them to do it. So the people who were already living there were really open to sharing their experiences. And I think that it's really important to give people an example of the fact that it can actually happen. It's not something that's a dream. It doesn't have to be like this impossible venture. I mean, and we met a really great couple actually who moved not very long ago from the U.S. with their little daughter. I think she was 4, and they just moved to Acapulco, and they're having a great time, and they're starting a new life. And I think some of their family went with them as well. And it was just the best thing they ever did. Like suddenly they felt that they had more control over their life, and they weren't sort of running away all the time. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I've taken home with me, that it doesn't have to be this amazing, impossible dream. It actually can happen. You can actually move there.
It really surprised me how many people were there that had already moved. And, the one guy that was originally, I believe, from Romania, he had moved to the United States like 20 years ago, moved to New Jersey, and he's like, well, I'm going to just up and move to Acapulco. And he hadn't even talked to anybody really before he moved down there. He just, I don't know how, he came across Angel Clark's radio show or something, and then contacted her, I think, like the week before he decided to move down there, and just moved down there, and she helped him find a apartment and stuff once he got there. And these people are really amazing down there. It was just such a a sense of friendship for people you've never really met or you've talked to online, and to meet them in person, they were, you know, just such giving and kind and wonderful people. You can just sit and talk to somebody like you've been friends with them your whole life and just talk about anything.
Yeah, I had the same experience. I met Angel as well on the first night we were there, and just the fact of like we've obviously seen her, seen videos of her, and known her through that, and she didn't know who we were, and it really, I think it's when you know that you're there for the same conference and you have the same mindset and just a baseline of knowing that all these people, even though we might disagree on other issues like how you want to live your life, the fact that we all agree on the fact that we don't want to force anyone to do anything, you're already good friends. Because I don't care what you do as long as you don't force me. So we can be friends, whatever beliefs or lifestyles that you have. And that in itself really showed how normally, like when I'm talking with friends, it seems like there's a lot of, it's kind of like a discord that can happen if people seem to want to force others to do something, especially in Denmark, because we have all these laws and people are like, yeah, we shouldn't do drugs, so it's good that the government is like has regulations to stop people from doing that. And I'm like, but why do you care? And then we get into fights about that. But if you just don't care about what other people do, then you can just move on with your life and spend your time doing things that you like. So you'll have more time to do what you like because you don't bother anyone else about what they like. It's such a simple thing, and that simple truth in itself makes it so much easier to be friends with people that I would normally never sort of hang out with because we're so different in so many other ways. But it just makes it gives you sort of a possibility to get to understand other people much better, because the baseline is that we respect each other and each other's freedom and privacy.
Yeah, and I mean, just being around that type of people and stuff it just made your mind so active, and you could come up. I just was so full of ideas and things, and Leslie had her little notebook out and was writing down stuff I was saying all the time, and it was funny because we were both just bouncing ideas off each other all the time when we were doing things, and it was
like some of the ideas. After a few margaritas, Jamie became a little bit creative. Like when you were sitting there and saying, "We should start a cartel."
Yeah.
Like maybe not this one, but the other ones are really good.
Yeah. If I'm going to be a dictator, I'd be really ruthless because I don't do things half-assed.
Exactly. Yeah. So some of the ideas were pretty creative, but yeah, it gave you really the mind space to discover some ideas without being sort of shot down all the time because like, oh, it's bad or whatever. It really the creativity amongst these people was amazing, and I think a lot of them, because a lot of them that wanted to move there as well, and a lot of them talked about doing it like soon. They wanted to find ways to make money and take care of themselves. They weren't sort of expecting anyone to do anything for them, but at the same time they would do stuff for other people if they could. And that kind of mindset that you don't really expect it from other people, but you would help them if they needed it. And if everyone feels like that, you have a really, really good community. So again, I wouldn't expect anyone, even the people who have offered to help me out if I wanted to stay there. If they say no, it will be perfectly fine. I'm not expecting it. But the fact that they do know that it's not I'm not entitled to their help. It makes it so much more honest and authentic whenever they do help, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and we connected with so many new people that we didn't know on the internet now too that were there. There were so many more people there than I thought I would know most of the people there from internet contacts, but all the people that were there that I didn't know. There were people from Australia, South Africa, Sweden, just all over the world, Thailand, or Cambodia, And I was just amazed that there were all these people there that, were part of this community that I hadn't even discovered yet.
Yeah, it's really finding your tribe, and that's the feeling that I got, that you are connected through this sort of common mindset, and it makes it so much more, it's such a vast network of people, because obviously a lot of people weren't able to come because they couldn't afford it, and stuff like that. So it's an even huge, like a lot bigger even than we experienced, because I think they did sell out. I think 300 tickets were sold, and the general feeling of knowing that there are many more people out there that actually feel like this, like really made it special. And also like the feeling of whenever at the conference, when people came out and had speeches, someone like Luke Rudowski, who was talking about the way that the media, like the mainstream media, we're criticizing the mainstream media mostly because we don't know, like we know that they lie sometimes. And he says it's not really about just criticizing what we don't like, it's about doing something that's better. And I think that mindset as well was really important. And it was a mindset of not just being angry with the world and angry with how things are, but about thinking ahead and thinking about how you can actually improve on services and products, or media and all that stuff, and how you can make something that's so much better that people will start to naturally choose the alternative that you make, rather than simply just fighting against something, because in the end it's just going to tire, people get tired of it and they can't keep doing it. But you can keep doing something if you believe in it and you do something for something, not against something else.
Yeah, an anti, just being negative about something and not proposing any solutions really isn't productive. And if you're just bitching about the media or anything and not proposing a solution or an alternative, just doesn't get you anywhere. So that's the thing, like before we had started this, it's like, well, we don't want to just bitch about the TSA the whole show, so we wanted to, have some balance to this. We wanted to say, that there was bad things about the traveling, but, I think our overall trip was positive, and just, how the contrast between the United States or Europe and Mexico was vastly different because of just how authoritarian the United States, especially in Chicago, was just a nightmare. I nearly missed my flight on the way back because they ran me through just a nightmare of inspections and everything and sent me to the wrong gate, and then they had the gate closed and were just yelling at me and everything on the way home. And I got to my plane, and the chute was away from the plane and I couldn't get on. And then finally the one nice man in Chicago came out and they moved the chute back to the plane and let me on. But I was just sweat.
And the shock from going from this place where everything was just generally really nice and you had a good time, to this sort of it was like being slammed in the face, with reality. Like, wow, okay, you're actually coming back to a place where even you are an American and you're not even welcome in your own country because they're just treating you like you're a criminal, and then being welcomed into a country where you're not even from and they're so much nicer. And it's the feeling of, you don't even, like, I don't want to have to move. It's one thing that I might want to move because, the weather is not as nice here and all those things, but I don't want to feel forced to move because I'm basically being pushed out. But it kind of is that feeling that I'm in a country. I mean, I'm not born in Denmark, but I was here from when I was like 3 years old, and I have a Danish passport, and I don't feel as welcome here as I do in Mexico. And it's crazy to think that if I move to another country where I've never been, and I mean, I speak basic Spanish, but not even that much, yet I would still feel so much more at home. And I felt at home because obviously now we know some people there. And I would feel, you know, if something happened and I had to like get a plane ticket out of here, I would go to Acapulco and I wouldn't be scared. I actually wouldn't be scared at all. I'd know that I somehow would find people that would help me, and I would just be fine. And that kind of feeling is less and less like in Europe, I think, for me, because it just feels like everything is about rules and regulations, and it's about everything having to be put into certain boxes, and that individualism that actually is the foundation of innovation and growth and you know, all these new ideas that come out, and people creating new amazing things. It's just being stifled, and I feel like and especially now that businesses are moving out of the U.S. and Europe because of this more and more stringent regulations, and people are, you know, the NSA is like watching everything we do. That kind of growth is going to happen a lot in places like South America, for instance, or in Asia, and we're going to see a lot more of that. That businesses will start to, instead of starting in the U.S., they're just going to set up shop in South America instead, and just go from there.
Yeah, or yeah, Latin America. There's just so much opportunity down there, and like we said, you know, these people down there aren't used to making a lot of money, and so if they make more than $20 a day, they're pretty happy. I mean, they feel lucky. So I was telling one guy, you know, that I think a lot of companies are going to be moving to moving to Mexico from the United States, and he's like, "Oh, you think they're just going to come here for the cheap labor?" And I was like, "No, not that. I think they're just going to move because of the regulations and stuff in the United States, and you know, it's the cheap labor really isn't going to be that big of a factor. It's going to just be." The regulations are so hard to set up a new business and stuff in the United States or Europe that you can just go to Mexico or, you know, South America and start a business, and you don't have to go through all the bullshit of applying for permits and all this other stuff and waiting 6 months for that one to clear, and then you got to send in another one after that clears and wait another 3 months and all this stuff, where you can just go down there and set up shop and start, and if somebody says, "Oh, that's illegal," you can say, "Oh, okay, well, here's $50, make it go away."
Yeah, it's kind of like the, you know, corruption in itself is not a good thing, but when corruption means that you can basically just, you know, maybe pay someone off not to bother you that much. You know, so in a way, like, of course, it would be great if the regulations weren't there, and we're talking like victimless crimes here. You know, I wouldn't want someone to pay someone off if they actually did something horrible to someone, but it's about making things smoother and not, you know, that if laws should be in place, they should be in place because they are somehow protecting people against being attacked and all that kind of stuff. And if laws are basically just making trouble for people, and there's stifling progress or innovation or people setting up businesses, I mean, it's really not the best law. It's really, of course, you have these, especially in Denmark, you have a lot of regulations, especially when you're building stuff, and obviously you might not have the same kind of regulations there where people are not as safe. But then again, it's your own responsibility. If you want to build a house, or if you're working as a builder and you're not, you know, using the right ladder or something, but that's your responsibility, because that's, you know, you can choose whether or not you want to protect yourself more. And here in Denmark, especially, you have this idea that you have to protect people's safety on their behalf. So it's sort of like, do people not care enough about their own safety to take care of themselves? No, because the state will make sure that you have this, you know, proper regulation so you don't fall off the ladder or something. But it's like, people are pretty, you know, they want to keep their limbs and not get hurt too much. I'm pretty sure they're going to be fine. So that mentality of infantilizing people and making people seem like they can't take care of themselves, That kind
Yeah,
of mentality is not in Mexico. In Mexico, you take care of yourself. Like you probably should take care of not getting hurt.
yeah, like a lot of the hotels and stuff in the United States, they got the windows so they impossible to open because they don't want people jumping out of them and things like that, and they don't have balconies out where you can sit on the deck and things like that. But in Mexico, they had this nice little deck that we could sit out on in our room and look at the ocean and the beach and everything.
On the
Where
11th floor, that was high up.
Yeah, and it was very nice, but a lot of places in the U.S. now, the insurance would cost them too much to have something like that because they're afraid somebody would fall off or jump off or something like that, where it's just ridiculous.
And in Acapulco, no one's going to jump because they're having too much fun.
Yeah, or they would try to jump and land in the hot tub or something stupid because they're
That's
drunk.
true. We had a hot tub right underneath their window. So yeah, I mean, the general sort of feeling of it was I'm so happy that I went. I've never done something as sort of spontaneous and kind of it wasn't the most logical choice for me to do right now because I didn't really have money for it. I had to borrow money, but it was a sense of I had to go to also just get a sense of the world being a bit bigger than just these four walls and Denmark in general, and having some input from people who were also thinking outside of the box. And I think that in itself was one of the biggest sort of positive experiences that I sort of got this sense of we're not alone. There are people like us out there. We want to help each other, and again, if I can help anyone in any way, I will, of course, because I want to support people who want to be free and who want to live a life without constantly having to fight the authorities and constantly having to hide from authorities, and having that sense of community across these borders is absolutely amazing, and it's one of the best decisions I've ever made, and just the fact that we did it so spontaneously. I mean, we talked about it. It was even just like a month and a half or something before, if even that. And we sort of just sat down and said, why not? Let's do it. And that kind of sense of sort of, yeah, we can just do something that maybe it's not like super practical or logical, but we did it because it's enriched our lives. And for me, it's definitely going to change my life in the sense that I'm going to really look into moving at some point, and hopefully not that far into the future.
Yeah, it was definitely worth going. The experience in itself was really a culture shock just to move there and see how different it was. And we hear all the media and stuff telling us how dangerous it is, and it's basically they tell you go to Mexico, you're going to be kidnapped and killed on arrival, or and we didn't experience anything like that. We were welcomed and treated very nicely, and
or maybe we didn't look like people that had friends that would bail us out for a lot of money.
could be, but it was just one of those things. If you're traveling, you gotta obviously be smart about it and not go around waving your money around and stuff like that. And Luke Radowski did a video the other day about how not to get robbed in Mexico, which I would recommend read or watching. It was just general advice. And if you have a travel partner, it's also, I think, can boost your confidence, and then you can both help each other if you're trying to figure out where you need to go next or whatever, and things like that. That really helped with having Leslie and I could help each other when we figured out where to go and things like that. Some of the things
feel a lot safer for sure. I mean, especially because you don't know the country that well. But I wouldn't. Yeah, if someone wants to travel alone, it's absolutely not dangerous in that sense if you just keep your head on straight.
Some of the things we did there were really fun. Well, the first night we got there, we had a really great party down by the pool. Well, we met in Mexico City, and it was like I waited like 20 minutes by the baggage part or area, and then I saw Leslie coming and met her, and then we went and tried to find a taxi that wasn't going to rip us off, and we walked down the street a little bit and saved a couple bucks on the taxi and got to the bus station. We took a VIP bus to Acapulco from Mexico City, and the VIP buses are excellent. Basically, you have this big recliner you sit in, and then they have a TV screen type deal in front of you you can watch or whatever, and then the big side windows or whatever. And
it was like a couch. It was like having a personal couch. It was amazing.
Yeah, and it takes about 5.5 hours to get from Mexico City to Acapulco on that bus, and it's a private road from there. So I was pretty impressed with the roads.
Yeah, the private roads were better than the public ones. I remember because you could see the toll booths on the way, and they were smooth roads, man. And then whenever we got to the public road, it was all like bumpy and shit. It was so funny.
But the variety of terrain was really amazing. I thought Mexico was mostly desert because I was just ignorant, and just the vast variety of terrain from really a lot of foliage and trees, and then there were areas that were a lot of evergreen trees, and then there were areas of desert, and then there were areas like by the beach with palm trees and stuff. So it was really nice to be able to take the bus and see the variety of terrain.
Yeah, I would actually recommend, because we were thinking about flying to Acapulco directly, and I'm really, really happy we took the bus. Like, first of all, because the bus was amazing, and it only cost like $40 for like the most expensive bus we could find. And on the way back, we even had like a private seating area, like a luxury VIP seating area where you got like snacks and shit. It was really, really good. And just to see the country, because it's so, so beautiful. I've never seen, like, I mean, I've traveled a bit when I was a bit younger, and like the last few years I haven't traveled that much. And it was, especially in Denmark, it's like flat. Like there's nothing happening in Denmark, basically. And so seeing that terrain and vast sort of forests and you know, the like huge bridges across like these canyons, and I was breathless. It was absolutely gorgeous country.
Yeah, and then when we got to Acapulco, then on the second day we took this in the hotel lobby. They were selling these tours and stuff, and they had this little cruise ship that did a tour of the bay and then went out into the ocean. So we took that cruise, and it was like $35 a piece, and it included the taxi to the boat and stuff. And we got on the boat and we waited about an hour, and Leslie went down and got us drinks, and she's like, the drinks are free, they're included with the price. Like, oh wow,
it was the best thing. Yeah, because they had like guys running around like serving people drinks, and it was like in styrofoam cups, and I think it's because then people wouldn't like drop them and shit. And it was the cutest thing because he asked us like beer or tequila, and we're like, tequila. So they just started bringing us margaritas. Like as soon as we finished one, he would bring us the other. And Jamie, he was like he had just finished like the fifth. The guy comes up with the sixth. He's like, the service here is impeccable. Because they were just like keeping an eye out. And it was the cutest thing that on the styrofoam cups, yes, there we have the guy.
Yes.
Perfect. We love this guy. We want to hire him full time next time we come there.
That guy was just amazing. But yeah, he had the styrofoam cups, and he had the lime on the cover, and he salted
and the salt on the rim, man, the salt.
But he was like the Terminator of bringing margaritas. It was like you'd have like that much just to quarter-inch left, and he'd be up there with more. I think I gave him like 200 pesos for a tip at the end of the trip, which is like what,
like
15
15
bucks.
to 16 bucks or something.
But
It was gorgeous. It was just this feeling of really yeah, because we were actually we took the tour around the bay, and we saw a lot of these small islands, and they have these beautiful houses. And some of these houses are yes, it was gorgeous. Some of these houses you can see, like they were talking about in the 30s and 40s, a lot of Hollywood stars and starlets used to have houses there, and you know, have big grand parties. So it's sort of this feeling of this old school vintage Hollywood glamour that a lot of these houses have. And I think nowadays you could probably rent out a house, or even buy one for fairly cheap, and especially compared to the prices that you would have in the US or Europe for a summer home. You could get something really amazing with a great view, and you could basically like feel like a Hollywood star. And I definitely, like, I'm definitely considering that, you know, if ever I can afford it, I would definitely buy something like that. It's just the fact that you can have you can have a lifestyle of someone that is much richer
yeah,
than you actually are, because you, like, here in Denmark, it would cost, like, something like that would cost like millions, and over there you could probably buy like a summer home for like a really nice one for a couple of $100,000, I think. I mean, then you would get a really nice place.
yeah. I mean, for $100,000 down there, you could buy a very nice home.
Yeah.
Um, and for as far as, you know, if you wanted to hire like a full-time driver or whatever, if you own the car and stuff, you can get a full-time driver bodyguard for like $15 a day,
Yeah.
and it's very cheap. Um,
It would be great to have that, just to feel like a celebrity. It's like, I'm gonna get a driver and a bodyguard. It's like, no one's trying to attack you. I know, but it makes me feel important.
yeah, and just how, like that guy that was bringing us the margaritas, just how good his service was. And every place we went, the service was just outstanding, except for the guy that was supposed to bring our bags up to our room.
I
That guy
know,
was
it
worth
took
a
him like
shit.
30 minutes, I swear to God, and we're like, where the fuck is our stuff? We could have carried it ourselves. I have no idea what he did with it. I
Yeah,
don't know.
that was the only bad service we had. And there is, if you don't speak any English or any Spanish, there is a bit of a problem, because most of the people down there don't speak any English, because tourism from America isn't very big there anymore. So they've just pretty much given up on learning English.
Yeah, because all the Americans are told that it's dangerous.
Yeah, so most of them, there, some of the people, it seemed like some of the younger people spoke English more, but you know, it would be good to know a basic Spanish, or now they have, you know, all these apps for a cell phone and stuff that for translators. So I was sitting out on the deck at the hotel in the morning, you know, looking up phrases that I thought I might use for the day on my translator app. But you know, Leslie speaks more Spanish than I do, so she was translating for me a lot.
Which
But
isn't that much, though.
I mean, you don't really need to speak a lot of a foreign language either, because if you know any type of charades, you can communicate that way too. Just pointing at stuff, or you know, making motions. Like if you know a basic word for, if you want, say you want a Pepsi or a Coke or some type of soda at a store, you just, if it's behind the counter, you just point at it and say the name of it,
Yeah.
and you buy it. So most of the stuff is pretty easy like that. Some of the other stuff it's a little more difficult, but
Yeah, like I mean, I was quite surprised, but I'm surprised like every time I travel, like even when I was in Germany, no one really spoke English, and I really don't speak any German. And I was surprised in restaurants, especially or hotels, where you're like, this, foreigners do come here, and more than any like any other place, and they just don't care. Like they don't want to speak any English. And I was so surprised when I called the reception at some point to ask about something, and it's like, do you speak English? She's like, no. It's like, yes, of course. Why would you speak English? You're in a hotel. That would be crazy. And I think it's one of the actually business ideas to have some kind of basic English course for hotel staff, something like that. You could easily make a business doing that, and then you could have the hotel pay for it because then they could have staff that would speak English, and that would give them the upper hand because other hotels that didn't have that wouldn't do as well with foreign tourists. So I think if anyone would like to start a business with that, that would be absolutely excellent.
yeah, it seemed like there was just so much opportunity for businesses just to do things to improve already businesses that were there that weren't quite didn't have the beginning parts of their business ironed out and the ending parts of their business ironed out for their customer service stuff. They had the middle parts, but they just were missing these important parts that would really be a bonus.
Yeah, and I think also, for instance, I'm not. I don't think crypto is that widespread over there. So starting businesses that have to do with Bitcoin and Bitcoin exchange, that would be brilliant to start spreading that around like the country and getting them on board because there are so many opportunities there for them to expand and really get like for South America to really start to take the opportunities that they actually have lying right in front of them and to like really begin to compete with the surrounding countries, in the U.S. especially. Like they have so much. They can like you don't even have to be very good at business, and you can really have a successful venture if you really want to.
Well, yeah, like you had went parasailing one day, and there was two brothers running this parasailing business there, and they seemed to have a pretty good business. They had a boat and they had a parachute and a thing, and they just they the guys were really ambitious. They were just running up and down the beach trying to get people to, buy their or pay for a parasailing trip. And the little parasailing thing was, oh, I don't know, how long was it? 5 minutes maybe that you were up in the air.
Yeah, it
But
was really, really good. Yeah, it was fantastic. It's the best thing I ever did. It was amazing. And just the fact that, yeah, they walk around and they ask people if they want to buy something. But, yeah, it doesn't feel like they're really encroaching, upon your space. Like, if you ask them to go, like, they'll go. It's not that they're going to hound you forever. Actually, the people that were, like, the least polite were, like, the old ladies. There were, like, these really, really old ladies walking around on the beach, like, selling like necklaces and stuff, and they would get like really offended if you asked them to go. But the younger people were just like really cool about it, and they had plenty of business because there were so many people on the beach, and like it wasn't crowded, like super cramped, but there was enough people for them to earn enough money, and it felt very natural that of course they want to sell you something, and they're also going to be okay if you don't want it. It's just really relaxed.
there was people coming up to you, a lot on the beach they'd have, a lot of stuff. They'd be carrying just tons of merchandise that they were trying to sell. And, they would just come up and show it to you, and you'd just say, no gracias, and they would walk on to the next person. The people that were kind of annoying were the masseuses, or the massage people, because they would come up and they would start giving you a massage and then want to sell you a massage. So I I got, I would, the woman came up and touched me one day and took me off guard. And I went, no! And she got offended because I was a little bit rough. But
Yeah, yeah. Actually, the masseuse, yeah, that was like the only time when I felt like, hey, man, don't violate my space. I actually paid her $5 to stop touching me.
yeah, but
But then again, it doesn't cost a lot to make them go away, so that's perfectly fine. It's like, yes, kind of starting a business of people paying you to go away, like, I don't know, singing really badly or something, and just be like, could you just go away? I'll pay you some money. And even for that kind of stuff, if I could speak Spanish a bit better, I would actually start giving them some ideas of stuff that they could sell that would be more useful maybe than those seashells or whatever they were selling, because there were so many small things that people might want that they couldn't actually get. Oh yeah, the guy was walking around with a Jesus. I still don't know what the point was with that though.
this
Where was
this
he
was
taking the
really
Jesus?
bizarre because the only people on the beach that weren't asking for money were the religious people carrying the Jesus statue.
Yes.
We wanted to give them money, and they wouldn't take it. They let us take his picture because we just thought it was so bizarre that he was walking around with this Jesus statue on the beach.
And we wanted to pay him for the for being allowed to take the picture, and he just disappeared. He wasn't there anymore.
And then the EMTs came up to us asking us for a donation. The people dressed in their EMT uniforms because they have voluntary um, medical services on the beach where it's just volunteers that come out and they're trained medical people in case people have heat stroke or things like that. And we gave them a donation too. But the one thing, it does get kind of confusing with the money there, with the change, and because the change in the paper money. So I just gave them a whole handful of change, which I hadn't realized it, but it was probably a lot of money after, because you got those, what are they, 20 or 10 peso coins that add up quite quickly.
Yeah, because that's about, I think the 10 peso coins that's about like almost $1 or something. And we kind of forgot about it. And as well, like when I was thinking about the money, yeah, like the value of like the bills, 200 pesos, for instance. I mean, it's not like nothing, but you kind of felt like, oh, it's not that bad. But obviously, it's so much more for them. I mean, just to think about that, it is the money for us even, but for them, it was just like the whole world. And I think that the fact of them being like they really respected the fact that if you gave them money, like a tip or something, that they were really grateful for it, and they knew, like you felt that it was like a mutual respect, that you respected their work and you wanted to show them gratitude for that. And so they respected you back. I mean, they even respected you without giving a tip or anything like that. And mostly people weren't even like offended or anything if you didn't give them a huge tip. But you really felt that you could, if you wanted someone to work for you as a chauffeur, and like we were talking about, they would respect you. They wouldn't be like, trying to cheat you out of stuff. They wanted to be good people, and they wanted to be nice to you.
Yeah, that was the impression I got. The difference between, like, say, Las Vegas or whatever, in Las Vegas, you feel just obligated. You have to tip everyone. And it's very annoying because you have to have just one pocket full of tip money, because everybody you come in contact with, every person basically in Las Vegas, you got to give them a tip. And it's just annoying as hell because you're constantly giving out these, $2, $3 to everybody. But in Mexico, it didn't seem like it was an obligation, and most of the people that you ran into weren't expecting a tip, and they weren't, so you were only tipping the people that were giving you really good service.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the feeling of, and also for them to have a sense of wanting to deserve the tip that they got. They didn't expect anything unless they brought some value to the table. And that's a really interesting concept, because I think, for me personally, I wouldn't want people to give me things if I didn't feel that I deserved it. I mean, of course, it's nice to get gifts and all that kind of stuff, but I always want to feel that I've added some value to their lives, and then I can get something for that. But I would never want sort of people just like giving me stuff for no reason, because it doesn't work like that. It gives you a sense of again, like a sense of entitlement for some reason, that oh, I deserve this for just because I'm here, and having that sort of the culture, especially in the U.S., that you just get tipped no matter what, then yeah, people don't really make an effort, and I like the fact that I have to make an effort to earn money, because I want to feel that the people are grateful for what I did, and not just giving it to me just because they feel they have to.
Yeah, that's kind of the feeling I got. I think it was in Mexico City, in the bathroom. They did have one bathroom attendant that was looking for tips, which was the only place. And when we got to, I think it was Acapulco, it was something different. They had pay toilets, so you had to pay to get into the restroom with coins, and we didn't have any Mexican coins when we got there, so Leslie had to go find change from some guy so we could use the bathroom. So that was a bit different for us, going to some place and having to pay to use the bathroom, but the bathrooms were nice and clean.
Very capitalist idea that you have to pay to use the bathroom. So always remember your 5 peso coins, people, if you want to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, but that was the only place we ran into those, was at the bus stop. And then on the way back, we had the way back, the bus stop was really nice for the VIP area. They had a air-conditioned waiting room, and they came in and they wanted to get our bags from us in the waiting room. And I didn't even get patted down before I got on the bus there. The woman patted me down before I got on the bus to go to Acapulco, but nobody cared when I went back to Mexico City.
No, because we're fancy people.
Yeah.
we're like we're like the rich fancy people. Oh yeah, and they even came and took our bags. Like, we didn't have to go and put our bags in the sort of the trunk of the bus. They actually came and took the bags from the waiting area and put the bags in the holding area. It was I felt very rich.
Yeah, well worth the $35 to take the bus.
Oh yes, oh for sure. I mean, I mean, compared to even like spending like $20 or something, and then just spending twice that, totally worth it. Totally worth it. So yeah, I mean, I would generally say, we've been talking for a long time now, but it's like, yeah, I would generally say that there is so much opportunity for people if if anyone is thinking about moving to another country, if you're living in Europe or in the U.S. South America and Mexico for sure is definitely an option, and it's not as far away as it seems, and the opportunities are so much bigger. Like, there are so many more opportunities than people really think, and it's really about thinking outside of the box, and thinking outside of the box in terms of business, because there's a lot of businesses now in Europe and in the US that are sort of set, and you have companies that are already doing certain things. But in Latin America or in South America, many people aren't doing it, and even if they are doing something, it's maybe not as good as you would sort of expect or want, and you can really compete on service and especially like business. Like they don't really have that sense of business and I don't know, like expanding business, especially. I think I think I kind of heard that this mindset was, if a person was earning some money during the day, and if they sort of earn, let's say at midday, they've earned the amount of, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I have to go just a moment.
Oh, I think what Leslie was going to say was, if they earned the amount of money that they were expecting to earn, that they would just quit for the day and call it a day, because they had made their daily quota basically of money that they needed, and they wouldn't really try to just work the rest of the day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We have to go.
Yeah, it's been over an hour. So, well, thanks for watching, and we just wanted to give you an idea what that was like, their experience going to Mexico. So
Yeah,
see you
and
next
definitely,
time.
like, if anyone wants any advice, just contact us, and we'll try and help.
Yep. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.